If Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership race on March 9th, Canada could face an unprecedented situation. A Prime Minister who has never held elected office and under a loophole in Canada's ethics laws may not have to disclose his financial assets prior to an election. This raises significant concerns about his potential to influence policy for personal enrichment at the expense of average Canadians, particularly when it comes to a company called Stripe. Mark Carney served as a board member of Stripe, a $65 billion Irish-American payment processor, while also acting as a senior economic advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Right now, Stripe is widely speculated to be preparing for an initial public offering, or going public, potentially this year. Recent actions which show this, that investors have speculated on its IPO evidence, include the company's cutting 1,000 jobs about a couple of years ago, but even more recently, the company just shed another 300 jobs. And this is something that some analysts are saying could be evidence of the company leaning operations ahead of an initial public offering. At his campaign launch on January 16th, Carney announced his resignations from the board of Stripe, Brookfield, Bloomberg, and others. But notably, he didn't confirm whether or not he had divested his financial interests in these companies. It's standards for board members to receive stock options or shares. And the question that I have is whether or not Mark Carney received any from Stripe and whether or not he still holds those interests. A very large, right now the valuation of a potential Stripe IPO is somewhere in the neighborhood of $65 to $70 billion, could translate into substantial financial gain for somebody who holds certain financial instruments, as Mr. Carney potentially could. And also, Stripe, as a federally regulated financial services company in Canada, makes disclosure of his interests especially critical. So, Canadians deserve a straightforward answer. Does Mark Carney still hold any stake in Stripe? Now, just to explain the loophole that I've mentioned. Under Canada's Conflict of Interest Act, public office holders have 60 days to file disclosures and 120 days to finalize them after assuming office. If Carney wins the leadership and then quickly calls an election, it's conceivable that he wouldn't have to disclose his financial interests, such as the one in Stripe, until after an election. And again, this is a situation that the law didn't anticipate. An unelected person who had significant corporate board interests becoming Prime Minister and then not disclosing his interests ahead of a federal election. There's another issue with Stripe as well, too. Earlier this year, Visa and MasterCard reduced interchange fees, promising Canadian small businesses $1 billion in savings over 5 years. Stripe, however, retained some of these savings from small business clients. They held it back. In late 2024, former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland pledged policy action to ensure that payment processors, particularly Stripe, would be mandated to pass along savings to small businesses. Yet, Mark Carney has been curiously silent on this issue, and because Parliament is prorogued and committee hearings that were looking at this issue can't continue, these savings have not been passed along to small businesses. The other thing is that because these savings are not being passed along to small businesses and are being retained by Stripe, it could help inflate its value ahead of a potential IPO. So today, Conservatives are calling upon the following: for Mark Carney to disclose all of his corporate interests, not just in Stripe. I firmly think that Canadians, anybody seeking to lead this country, need to live above the letter of the law and with the spirit of the law, which he's not doing by not disclosing his assets. And we're also calling upon him to speak out and call upon Stripe to pass these interchange fee savings to small businesses, particularly as every Canadian business requires everything that we can possibly do to help them get ahead under the threat of American tariffs. Thank you.